important to understand the difference between being secretive out of fear and being private out of protection. When you're secretive out of fear, you're going to project that onto other people in terms of haters, in terms of people who would intentionally be manipulative, gaslighting, psychologically damaging Jezebels or succubuses. Kind of like the group. They committed identity theft and made deep fakes and went on a wild smear campaign, and for some reason still feel somewhat entitled to their freedom or not being exposed, and thinking that that's not going to happen, but it is. People that are operating out of that level of sheer hatred, sheer jealousy, sheer greed, whatever their intentions or their motives have. It's all about them. Okay, because these people don't know me. So it has to be about them because they don't actually know me. Despite what they tell you, they don't know me. I can assure you. Nobody like this that would ever participate in anything like this would even be able to get close to me. Anytime you're in any kind of partnership, connection, relationship, friendship, we always have to gauge what your intentions are first. And through self-awareness, being honest with yourself. When you are being protective and you're being private, it means that you're not gossiping, you're not sharing intimate details about another person, you're mindful of who it is that you're speaking to, but mainly like what are your intentions and what are the intentions of the person that you're feeling compelled to be private around, like whomever it is, whether it's your family, your friends. Let's say you have a family that is racist, okay? And that you're seeing somebody of a different race. And you are being secretive about that. That is a projection of your fear. That doesn't have anything to do with that other person. And so that other person can choose to accept that position. They can choose to accept your fear. If they make that choice, then that has to be mutually agreed upon. If it's not, it's going to not go well. It's going to create conflict. In terms of privacy, you're not concealing it. You're not keeping it a secret. You don't have any reason to. But let's say your family then gets inquisitive about this person, wants to know their history, wants to know details about, what they do for a living and stuff like that. You can choose what you share with other people, but again, gauging the intentions of why they're inquiring about this. And if you recognize that you have family and friends that want to see you happy, they're unconditionally supporting, they don't have any ulterior motive, but they have an ego in the way of this. Again, I keep repeating this because, again, this is a very important thing for people to understand, especially right now. Self-awareness is everything. It's everything. If you are not self-aware enough to understand when you're operating from ego, your perception of how you see the world is going to be off. It is going to be off. You will never have an accurate interaction with anyone. You will never make a fully sound decision that includes other people. Your plans will likely always be disruptive, and you'll always be misaligned. What you're attracting to you is from that ego, okay? A lot of men have a really hard time with this. I believe, and this is just my personal opinion, this isn't divine wisdom. I'm allowed to have both, actually, believe it or not. But from my experience, which again is slightly limited because most of my exposure, my dating exposure, has been with narcissists, and I had voodoo on me. People intentionally in the background of my life trying to curse me and hex me my entire life. So I was always sort of dodging the proverbial bullet. Somebody might not be like an outright narcissist, okay? But they're still not balanced in their energy. And they are operating from ego. And so when they are operating from ego, a man, he is going to be putting out an abundance of feminine energy. So he's just naturally, physiological facts here. Okay, this isn't speculation. He's going to call into him more masculine presenting women. And I'm not talking about physical presenting. I'm talking about being action orientated, more likely to be a little manipulative, more likely to want to compete, more likely to want to get into these like power dynamics, more likely to challenge him, more likely to exert emotional blackmail, guilt trips, shame, devaluing. And again, it doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be overt. A lot of times, specifically, if a man is not like a full-blown narcissist, and a lot of people who have depression, anxiety, any kind of like personality type of thing, they sometimes, because they're not balanced in their energy, they sometimes can appear or feel very balanced in their normal energy, their natural equilibrium, masculine energy. But if they're not balancing their environment, and if they're not healing and self-actualizing, they will still tend to go through periods of pushing out this feminine energy. I have a whole theory behind this actually that I'm not going to explore right now because, I'm still locked in this hair digital cage. This is one of my theories around sort of the gender identity confusion sometimes. But again, I'm not going to go all into that. But you'll notice that these people tend to manipulate those cycles. They tend to play into those cycles. So let's say, for example, during a high stressful time, the women who have been drawn in through the feminine energy that man has put out, they will tend to sort of flare up in their masculinity during that time of like fluctuating and balancing. You follow me? So let's say a man has like a deadline and his bank account's in the negative and he's got to get 40 kids to a game or, just typical for a lot of men. During this time, he can tend to somewhat, if he's not balanced, if he hasn't appropriately structured his time and his environment, because anybody who's ever stressed to that level has not structured their environment correctly. It shouldn't be happening. But if that's happening, the women that are in that environment tend to take advantage of that. So that's when they'll like come in with a complaint, or they need something, or they're sick, or they just start sort of just gently creating chaos. It might not be overt, but they gently tend to create chaos in that environment. Now, likely, because you're not dealing with fully awakened people here. If you're in this environment, you're not dealing with fully awakened people. Even if they call themselves woke. You're not dealing with people that are enlightened. You're not dealing with people that are self-actualized if this is happening. Okay? It's important. Let's say this happening all around you. It's important for a man to prioritize the very next thing that he does is healing. It's healing. Whatever needs to fall away from the reality, let it fall. Just let it fall. The longer you try to hang on or try to control everything out here, the longer it's going to take for you to align in here. In here. Another way that you can confirm this to be true. You will find, while this sort of subtle form of chaos creation, this like flare up and like, why is this happening now? You'll also notice that you tend to be taking care of things that you would expect a woman to do. Right? So this is when maybe baby mama drama, if you have a spouse, if you have a partner, it's like they want you to do something or they're requesting something of you, whether it's nurturing, it's like whatever you would just naturally, when you're in your natural balanced energy, it's like you would think would be a reasonable expectation. It's like I have all this going on right now, and you need me to go pick you up some tampons. You know what I'm saying? Or, you have to wake up early in the morning and the kid's got a sore throat, and you want me to stay up with the kid all night. Even though I have a meeting in the morning, you want me to stay up with the kid all night. Okay. So you'll notice that may be happening. You have to, again, be self-aware enough. Okay? Because what you're doing, and you'll know you're self-aware, is that you're observing yourself. You won't necessarily even have to observe what other people are doing. You'll observe yourself. And this isn't to say that men shouldn't do these things by any means, please. No. Not at all. Because remember, you're accepting the terms. You're accepting the terms. So a lot of times, especially if you are becoming self-aware or you're healing, that's going to create even more chaos. I went through this too. Not to the point of marriage, thank God. But when you're starting to observe yourself more heavy in your masculine energy, and okay, I guess I'll go get a second job since you don't want to work. I guess you can take food out of my freezer and take it to your apartment. It's like, okay, sure, I'll give you a ride. Sure. You sit in the passenger seat. You let me drive. It's like, you'll notice that you're subtly taking on what would be sort of, the man role. Now, again, this isn't all the time. This is just sort of like the natural and organic type of things that people tend to move into, the energies. And then another way that you will know is that you will feel compelled, or you may even feel it's just who you are. It's like a character trait, but this isn't true, to be secretive. This is what you're sort of programmed yourself based on what you've accepted, what you've come into agreement to, and what you have allowed to be perpetuated into your reality. But when you're balanced and you have started creating your own reality based off of your own inner knowing, your own self-love, your own self-worth, knowing your value, and you have made the conscious choice to choose yourself first, choose God first, whatever else you create will always be the best of what you could ever beyond your wildest imagination. It just naturally starts to happen. I was like a little bit like, whoa. But it also empowers you, because you will notice once you are from that place when things are off in your environment, in your reality, which is kind of what gave all these freaks up. I don't have to do much. It's like trying to explain this to people who are unhealed is very difficult, especially if they are willfully ignorant. They can't take accountability, they don't want to take responsibility, and they don't want to change. Okay, so there's definitely at least a few people here that are embracing that. I don't know why. It's dumb, but that's their choice. Nobody else should be even trying to control that. But that's another part of healing first yourself. But when you are creating that reality that is reflective of you, anytime things are starting to change, like down to my money being imbalanced, I'm like, something is amok here. Because I know myself. I know I just created this literally all by myself. So, like, any of these weirdos thinking they were going to gaslight me, or definitely like my ex and his like freaking new wife, or my mother, the people that aren't even in my life, right? Because they didn't see all of that. And they're wounded themselves. They're bitter, angry, unhealed psychopaths who apparently have just committed to that. I don't know. But also what people will do is that they're trying to change other people. Any person who is healed from a trauma bond or any kind of unhealthy relationship, even if it's at work, even a toxic work environment, you've actually put the equity in. Because anybody who goes through a truly transformational healing period and does whatever it takes, willing to make the sacrifices, willing to give up vacations, willing to bite the bullet and clean houses or DoorDash for extra cash, willing to ask for help from your church. You have to go through that period and close out all of those cycles. Close them out. Be able to balance. For me, God wanted me to find joy without any outside influence. God wanted me to know the fullness of my energy. But because I had so many people in the background of my life for so long, intentionally trying to drain my energy, intentionally trying to keep me low, intentionally, really abusing me, like actually intentionally setting out to do this, like planning on doing this. Now, again, I didn't know this at the time. There's been no way for me to know it had I not gone through those situations, all of it. Even if it was mostly man-made warfare, I had to go through it. That's how God makes the devil your footstool. But my desire to do that started with my obedience to God. My obedience to myself and to God, and to bring meaning to all of the pain that I went through. Because it's hard to have gratitude when you're still feeling that pain. But when you make the commitment to yourself to say, I'm not going to let what I've been through define me. I'm going to change it into something else. And what you change it into is your purpose. You create on the other side of that, you understand the difference between discretion and privacy and secrecy. Like, I would never have anybody in my life that I would feel compelled to have to keep a secret. Ever. Because if you feel that way, that means that there's something in your environment that you're fearing. And that means that's something that needs to change about your environment and needs to change about you. Unless, of course, you're aligning with people that are also okay with fear, and so they agree to that. But people who have rejected that, especially if they're anointed, you're not even going to be able to come into their energy. You won't. Actually, the interesting thing, when I'm giving my attention to someone, because I only give my attention to one person, but I'm also very in control of my energy. Men just naturally know you're not available. And if they ask and, you respond in a respectful way, whatever, they'll take that just fine. Like, they really will, actually. They'll respect it. And if they're not, they're going to clap back in a way that you would expect a jealous woman to behave. And I've definitely experienced plenty of that. It will be mutual. This will be mutual. Woman, you out or flirting with you or whatever, if a man is seeing someone and he tells that woman that, and she responds in like a snarky, weirdo, jealous, psycho way, and then goes on a rampage, like searching up her aunt's, cousin's, brother's, uncle's, nephew from the other side of the family, or like opens a full-scale investigation, makes false claims, has you investigated by the FBI, and then drags a whole bunch of people into a dumpster fire for which many people now could potentially be indicted on a federal hate crime and be facing a pretty serious lawsuit. If that's how they respond, they're toxic AF. And they're also in their masculine energy. But potentially a straight freaking psychopath to the fullest level that should be in a straitjacket. Discretion all the time is like, okay, yeah, I can talk. I can say, oh, hey, I'm seeing this person. Oh, see, or like, I'm interested in this person. But if my friends, and this actually is a true story, if my friends ask to see his social media or anybody's social media, I'm not going to show it to them because I'm not in a relationship. Like, there hasn't been a firm boundary put down here. There hasn't been expectations. It's not appropriate. And that potentially could damage things. If I did do that, and that person that I was talking to then went and showed their friend, because some people, again, they gossip, especially women, share that with somebody else. And that person knows somebody else. And then they go on that rampage. Ultimately, that's going to reflect negatively onto me. And so if I'm aware that that has happened, like somewhere in the mix, a psychopath caught wind, started going on a giant smear campaign and making false claims, trying to have your children taken from you, making deepfakes of you, and like all of that, that's my responsibility. Or if a guy does that to you, that's his responsibility. Period. Because that's the person that opened you up to that level of psychotic whatever. So that's why discretion is important. That's why privacy is important. But it's also based on who you are, where you're at, and what is the definition? What are the boundaries around your connection? And see, people just really get this messed up. But, you know, again, you have so many like contrived fake scenarios and relationships on social media. I'm pretty sure like most people that probably have fake followings and fake numbers, not that I know that, you know, these social platforms will straight up change numbers, and they determine people's results and their income and all of that. It isn't actually like a normal following or normal algorithm. A lot of these relationships, I'm pretty sure, are like setups behind that, but I also don't care. I really don't. But you have to recognize, if you're buying into that bullshit, no matter what you do, no matter how you try to switch it up, no matter what trend you try to jump a hold of, you know, like let's say before you were into tarot and now all of a sudden, you know, you're reborn again in Christ. I'm not saying you're not. Or let's say you were an OnlyFans person and now you're Muslim. Okay. And again, this is not citing anybody specifically. But all the time, that is going to come off inauthentic. It doesn't matter what you're switching up your intention to. It doesn't matter what your rebrand is. It's still going to come off inauthentic to someone who isn't basing their message, their platform. Like, again, my intention was never to be doing this through social media. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I got placed into a digital cage and had all of my social sites be like spoof pages, so that the rodents who committed identity theft and went on a giant smear campaign actually made deep fakes, and then like a whole other prostitute who they posted up all over different sites and pretended like it was me so they could make money off of my content. And they're still doing that to this day. Like, why that's still happening? Why Cash App and PayPal are allowing that to happen is going to be a very good question that is going to have to be answered, because they've been reached out to. So, like, I'm really not sure. Also, the bank, that's going to be, like, this could be something that could potentially bring down a whole company. So I'm really not sure, like, what the hesitation is. Like, there's no debating here, okay? There's no debating. And if somebody didn't want to be included in the criminality part of that, like potentially facing an indictment or a lawsuit, then that's your responsibility to clear that up. Like, it's like everybody wants other people to be responsible, but then they also want to project onto other people. And you're not actually healing. You're not actually doing the work for yourself. You're not putting yourself first. And if you have any of this in your environment, there means there is a piece of you still a part of that environment, a part of that pattern. And the last thing, you have a bunch of women in any environment, and I've been in this scenario many times. When you have a bunch of women that become toxic within an environment, it is because there is a lack of masculine influence and leadership. Period. No man who is in his balanced energy would allow jealousy to go on around him. The only man that does that is a man who is having his ego validated from that happening. And no judge, because a lot of guys do this. I've had bosses actually do this. I've seen doctors actually do this. They allow that sort of abundance of toxicity. They sometimes will even feed into, a lot of times they will actually feed into it, because it makes them feel a sense of power and control. And then, of course, if they can't take accountability, they're going to be blaming everybody else. If they are a doctor or a boss, or, you know, if they're in a leadership position, they're going to be projecting onto everybody else that it was everybody else's fault. But it's like, no, this was your responsibility. You were the leader. And depending on if they're open to receiving that feedback or that coaching, thankfully. And this is one benefit that I did have. Actually, I don't want to give anybody up here, but he knew that when I said something, see, this is also a thing that a lot of women get jealous about, but it's like, you could do the same thing. I was like, this is just who I am. Like, men respond to me, one, because I'm not jealous. Two, I'm always authentic. And three, I'm humble. I'm willing to pipe down when I need to pipe down. And I'm willing to take leadership and instruction, not from somebody who's in their feminine energy, not somebody who's trying to compete with me. If a man's trying to do that, then we have a problem, because I'm not trying to be a man. So why are you trying to be me? Sometimes we just got to initially work out the little kinks, especially because if I don't feel safe, if I don't know you that well, like, get the hell away from me. Like, I will act like a dude around you just so you get away from me. If they can receive this, like, if you can give, maybe not just, it's more specific to whatever situation is. It's situational, how this advice is going to be tailored. But they will be open to understanding that they are feeding into that pattern, and they'll be able to consider how it's disempowering them. And the thing is if you're in your masculine energy, speaking to somebody who, even if they're not like a full-blown narcissist, but they're just like responding in an egoic way. Okay, and this is the case of a lot of men, especially leaders. Again, the feminine meets that energy by like alchemizing that ego with femininity, with intuition, with nurturing that is healthy. Okay, and so it will come from a place of wanting to empower that man to be moving around and being more effective as a leader and as a balanced masculine man. But if he's not open to that, if he's enjoying that validation and he's accepted that, that's how he wants to be. He wants to be toxic, A lot of narcs have, especially the old dusty crusties. If you go in like a man, and again, this could be very subtle, in your masculine energy, like telling a man just what he's doing wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, it's going to leave him feeling more disempowered. And essentially, especially if this is done over a long period of time, emasculated. And hence leading to that fluctuation where he's constantly trying to naturally align back to what his normal is, what his compass is supposed to be set at, which is balance. And if you have people in the background like I did, intentionally trying to throw that off, like putting voodoo on you, roots, curses, sex magic, all the weirdo shit that a lot of people are doing nowadays, okay? Don't underestimate the Jezebel, okay? They're wicked. They're wicked. They know your ego better than you do. And so it is kind of like a fine line. Now, I just sort of have a natural gift because egos don't affect me. It's a mask that somebody cannot wear because I don't have an ego. So narcs try to project their ego onto me because they're in their feminine energy. And seeing an empowered feminine actually moving like a feminine, especially if she's with a balanced masculine, you're going to get high-ranking demons coming for you. You just are. Using discretion and privacy, you're not moving in a toxic way. You're not even going to worry about secrecy. Like, why do you give a shit what other people think? Who cares? It's like, no. Understand this. Because what's going to end up happening if a man is open to receiving this is that if he takes that feedback and he considers it, and then he makes slight changes to that, how he responds to that jealous energy around, how he responds to that sort of energy in the environment. If he's doing that from a balanced masculine way, from a healthy way, not from ego, those things are going to naturally resolve, just naturally. Because he's the leader, especially if it's his own company, but even if he's the leader of a corporation or organization, whatever, if he's doing that correctly, those people are naturally going to start misaligning with everybody else because he's the leader. That's just the way that it goes. And he has to be constantly re-examining that, though, and be willing to take feedback from someone. It's hard to get healthy feedback from a woman. Be open to it from a place of self-awareness. If it's not changing, if your reality isn't changing, then there's something else that you need to look at. I mean, unless you're locked in a digital cage and you have a whole bunch of weirdos trying to block you off the internet, steal your money, isolate you, and exploit your content, and keep up with some giant ass, broke ass narrative story that is 100% false, instead of just letting it go, and allowing you to live your life as an independent person, who has always been independent and built everything on her own. And what other choice do I have? Your spell work and your curses don't work on me. I'm just literally waiting for you to get the hell out of my way, for actually any man to be a leader. Because this wouldn't be happening. If there was men leading, if there was men balanced in their masculine energy, this wouldn't be happening.